Watch, I'll show you. Hello, everyone. This is your dynamic host, Rudy Bronson. And I'm joined today by your other not so dynamic host,
Charlie Glapliano.
And Charlie is just excited to be here. That's a little
good.
too...
God, you had it. You had it.
Your favorite new podcast. So fresh. We're dripping with excitement. Okay, no. 80s and 90s nostalgia. And
Miners.
It's a little too silly, though.
Yeah.
People don't know us enough. They're like, who the f*** is Rudy Bronson?
And Charlie Clagliano.
God, man. And you had to go Italian with it, you know? Canceled. Just go. Take it from in, minors in.
Miners in retro
Nope,
video.
try it again.
No.
Whoops.
I mean, I'm taking it. None of this is going to be used, right?
Yeah, I mean, probably not. You never know.
10-point bonus.
Now, there's still no word that I hear for the virus.
Report suspicious activity and call 911.
I can give you every assurance, Mr. Rudy, that Paris is full and was
And it was anybody in above us to pass us like 30 seconds ago. Count this. The UFO.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite brand new podcast, That Would Be Rad, the show that majors in all things paranormal, comic culture, 80s and 90s nostalgia.
And Miners in pre-internet mysteries, retro video games, and raising our kids to be half as cool as we were back in the 80s.
I'm your host, Woody Brown.
And I'm your other host, Tyler Bence.
What's up, bro?
You know, just trying to get through this intro.
Look, I want everyone to come on a journey with us today. And I want you to hop in a DeLorean or your time travel machine of choice.
Or,
Okay. Boy, I didn't
would it-
kind of
would it
figure
not-
I didn't think. I thought I'd at least get through 2 or maybe 3 sentences before I was rudely
no, I'm
interrupted.
saying,
Go ahead.
I'm saying, why would they not just jump into the Batmobile?
Well, because there's a little bit of mystery I'm trying to like freaking have here, man. If you would listen to the whole thing, set the dial to 1989. The Berlin Wall between East and West Germany falls, representing the end of the Soviet Union on November 9th. George H.W. Bush is president, and the number one song is Another Day in Paradise by Phil Collins. If you're a baseball card collector, you might also remember the 1989 Fleer baseball card for Billy Ripken, Cal Ripken Jr.'s brother, had the words "face" written on the bat due to a prank by his teammates. Indiana Jones and Ghostbusters 2 hits the theaters, and my best friend Brian DeMaricott started dating the girl I had the absolute biggest crush on. What I remember about 1989 the most, in fact, I could just call 1989 the year of this, would be Tim Burton's Batman.
Yes, the best. It was literally called Bat Summer. I specifically remember that.
Going back and diving deeper into sort of just all the stuff that surrounded the movie in terms of the production, how in the world Tim Burton even became like the director, the controversy that Keaton being cast as Batman caused. I mean, Jack Nicholson just being Jack Nicholson on the set. The fact that, I mean, we've got Prince on the soundtrack here, folks.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Not to mention it just being like this phenomenon that happened in '89. I mean, kids are shaving the bat symbol in the side of their head. You know?
I begged my mom. She just...
Oh my God, me too.
She wasn't having it. No.
Nope. Man, you know what we should do?
Do it now.
Absolutely.
You go ahead. You start. You kick it off, and then...
Well, I was thinking maybe you could start.
right
I would
behind you.
kind of take some notes. And then... So, where do we begin with this movie, man?
Well, it's a Tim Burton classic at this point. You know, it was hit with a lot of pushback. I mean, he was sort of beloved by his fans, but, you know, he's not the most...
He's not like... If you're a movie executive, he's not on the tip of your tongue when you're meeting that first sort of... conference room meeting. You don't just have like a short list of people. Tim Burton's not on that list. So I've always been kind of intrigued, although arguably, man, Tim Burton's Batman and then again, of course, Batman Returns are two of my just absolute favorites.
Yeah, me too.
That exist. So I was curious about that. Like, how did Tim Burton get the job? And as I looked into it, there's some things that you just don't think about or realize because, what you were like 8, right? And I was...
You would have been...
I was... No.
You would have been
It came out
28.
It came out June 23rd, 1989. So I was still 8. I hadn't turned 9 yet, which I turned 9 in September that year. So take it easy, pal. At this point, Tim Burton...
He's
let's
not
rewind.
a safe bet.
Well, I don't even know if he's like any kind of bet. I mean, like at this point under his belt, he's really only got one full-length feature, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Now, by the time Batman came out, and in fact, one of the things that the studio they waited to completely greenlight the whole thing.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Of course, he was still tapped to be director. They had chosen him, but they were kind of like, let's kind of wait and see what happens with Beetlejuice. Now, okay, so you're talking about a guy whose only film right now really is Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Trust me, dude, I love that movie.
God, me too.
It's amazing, but I don't watch that movie and think, man, you know what I wish? I wish whoever did this movie would make a Batman film.
Yeah.
Well,
I will say this. I will say that because I've thought of this several times. Like I've often wondered, were they trying to replicate sort of the campiness of the '66 Batman with like sort of a new kind of campiness, I guess maybe.
Well,
That's sort of what I've always wondered.
so here's the thing there. So, another thing to keep in mind for everybody listening, when they started talking about this, when Warner Brothers started to be the studio that was like, okay, we're going to make this Batman movie. This is like mid 80s, actually, when they first start talking about it and trying to find who's going to write it, who's going to direct it, all that stuff. They actually didn't really necessarily want to go in the direction of the Adam West series. Now, another thing to think about is that Adam West series that everybody kind of knows and loves, basically, it's super cheesy. That's where the common, like the
Pow.
yeah, and like the
Bang.
holy smokes, Batman, or holy bat spray, Batman, like it's super cheesy stuff, but still fun. It was off the air for like 2 decades by this time. I mean, they played reruns and stuff like that. And so I think they wanted to do something. They definitely didn't want it to be that campy, although throughout all of the different writers that they had in there, I mean, I think it got rewritten like 9 times by 9 separate writers. Later in like 86, that's when they kind of like approached Tim Burton. And one of the reasons you and I had talked about this when we decided that we wanted to do this episode, we kind of wondered, I mean, Burton kind of draws, and I wonder if he like submitted some concept art or, maybe he was the one that was really kind of pushing to do this. But what I found out was they kind of approached him because of his ability to work on a very, very small budget. So Pee Wee Herman was like really, really tiny budget that ended up being like a blockbuster hit relative to how much it cost the studio to make. And so same kind of with Beetlejuice, they'd heard that he was able to make this like small budget work. And so that's really what solidified him in their eyes.
So pretty much kind of the same reason that Bob Dylan, was able to make his first few records, because they realized that him making an album was just him in a single room with a harmonica and a guitar, and it didn't cost anything. So
Exactly.
it's like, well,
it didn't cost them much, but it was going to make them a lot, is their theory, which, I mean, that's, I guess, business or whatever. But here's some cool stuff about Tim Burton. What did he do before that? Well, he did a couple like different sort of animation type things. In fact, one of his first real kind of live action films was Frankenweenie, which was released in '84.
I've still never seen it.
Yeah, I've never seen it either, and I don't even know if the one that you can see that we know of is just like a re-release of this, because what I found out was Disney, after he finished that project, I guess the execs over at Disney watched it and they were just furious, man. Furious, because they basically said like, hey, look, you used all these like Disney resources and you made a movie that's way too dark and pretty much like creepy that kids are not going to watch. So
Never
you basically
gonna
just
watch. Yeah.
wasted our money.
Well, and isn't it in black and white too?
Yeah. Yep. The one that I know of, black and white. What's amazing though, dude, this is a revelation I think people can take away from this. If there was never any Frankenweenie, there would never have been Tim Burton Batman. Here's how. Follow this path.
Okay.
So Paul Rubens sees Frankenweenie and says he's the guy that's got to do the movie adaptation of Pee Wee Herman. So he was the reason Burton got Pee Wee Herman subsequently, the reason why, Burton got Batman basically was because of the success of Pee Wee Herman. Another cool thing, the only reason Danny Elfman, because Danny Elfman scored
what
the
did
music
he
for he did the music for Pee Wee's Big Adventure, and the only reason he
that's
did
right.
that was because Tim Burton was a fan of Oingo Boingo.
Oingo Boingo,
and,
yeah.
and Danny Elfman, I think, was like the keyboardist, and so that's the only reason he approached him. Man, he's like, oh man, I really like Oingo Boingo. I bet he could write something cool. And then Danny Elfman went on. I mean, I think except 3 movies, he scored every single Tim Burton movie in existence. Except
was he doing scores and composing before that? Or was he still
man. I don't think
in
so.
Oingo Boingo?
I don't think he really was.
Man, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, because he also did all the soundtracks for, like Spider-Man. Just a ton of superhero movies.
Which, I would say he's probably, I'd say John Williams, Danny Elfman, Hans Zimmer. He's in the top 5 of the all-time great composers of like the modern age.
I agree, man.
That's pretty incredible that especially if he wasn't really doing the composer thing, he was just kind of like a band guy, like you or I, you know. And then he's like, oh, hey, I think I'm gonna do some composing. That's amazing.
It's crazy, man. Yeah, no.
Yeah, his stuff's amazing. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, so sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I know you've done a lot of research, but is this a show purely about Oingo Boingo?
Dude, I'm not even talking about Oingo Boingo. Oh my God, you're the
Carry
worst.
on.
Okay, so after they kind of tapped Burton, he and his then girlfriend Julie Hickson wrote a 30-page treatment for one of the kind of most recent rewrites of the script.
Yeah.
They all kind of felt like the previous versions were like way too campy. Burton's kind of like reading over this, and it's just he's not feeling it. So he gets this guy Sam Hamm, Hamm. Sam was adamant about not making this an origin story. He just felt like that having it be an origin story as the arc kind of takes away, it kind of robs the audience of
like the experience of
the
Batman.
experience of it's like that's too much of a peek behind the curtain. So he kind of wrote in the flashback scenes that we now know in this movie. I just watched this a few days ago, and I forgot about this, but I love how the very beginning you see a man, his wife, and a young boy at a movie, I think. And they end up leaving early, and you think, oh man, this is it. As a Batman fan, you kind of assume, oh man, we're about to see Bruce Wayne's, origin. And then it's not, it's just like, I don't know. I always thought that was so cool that he kind of teased.
It's like a misdirect a little bit.
Yeah, man. I love that.
Yeah.
So now, unless you oppose, I kind of want to go over some of this crazy as hell casting trivia, man, that I...
Oh, dude, that's like all my notes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man, because I'm pretty sure I didn't tell you to do that. Okay.
Well,
There goes my Sunday. Hey, man. There it goes. I avoided my family for a whole 32 hours so that you could just have duplicate information. I'm excited. I can't wait to hear you talk about it.
You'd be doing the exact same thing. You'd just be watching old VHS tapes.
Oh, man. Okay, what you got?
I have 7 pages, so do you just want me to start at the top?
Okay, but before you go into your notes about casting, let's take a quick break. And when we get back, then you can dive into it.
You will know it is time to turn the page when you hear R2-D2 beep like this. Let's begin now.
You were talking about in the original script, Dick Grayson, which to all you non-Batman fans ends up being Robin. He was supposed to be in the movie. He was even storyboarded, and they offered the role to Kiefer Sutherland, he was just coming off of Stand By Me and Young Guns, and he turned it down thinking that it would be, like the 66, sort of campy Batman. He said he always regretted it, and then I think it was in a Rolling Stone article, he was basically said, I didn't realize they were going to make the coolest movie ever.
Yes.
Which is pretty cool.
And really, he would have been a weird Robin.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting, too, that when he turned it down, he was kind of like the choice for Robin. So when he turned it down, it was like, well... There's nobody else, which is interesting. Which did they show? I can't remember if they showed that. Was it in Batman Returns?
No, Batman Forever. So what's cool is, me and my son Woodrow, our oldest, had like a Batman movie marathon this weekend.
Nice.
And yeah, Batman Forever, dude. I had completely forgotten that Robin is actually in that one. So they show.
But it's just barely though, right?
No, dude. I mean,
Really?
Yeah. Really.
Oh, no. I'm thinking of Batgirl. She's only in it.
Yeah, she's in Batman and Robin. So for Batman, what I read is at the time, Warner Brothers wanted an action-packed movie. And so they wanted an action star. So some of the names that I saw that they'd considered were like Mel Gibson, Kevin Costner,
Yep.
Charlie Sheen, which is
Kinda weird.
Chicken. What does he say? What did he say? Chicken, or no?
Winner, chicken dinner. I don't think so. Winner, Sheen dinner.
You don't know. The dude is
my
a nut
God.
job, dude.
Oh, he's definitely not job.
But he would have made it pretty cool. Let's see, 89. I think he would have been a little too young.
Oh yeah, which that's interesting too. He was also a Young Guns guy.
Oh yeah, man. Regulators. Tom Selleck.
Ray Liotta, which
Yeah, kill boy.
is weird. Oh no, I think the weirdest one, I have this in my notes too, is Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, yep. Willem Dafoe. That actually Burton was the one that wanted
I know.
him because he was like unknown. But I also had Bill Murray, Harrison Ford, and Dennis Quaid. Man.
Yeah, the Bill Murray thing, I read that too. The director for Ghostbusters had a pitch with Bill Murray as Batman and Eddie Murphy as the Joker, which would have not even remotely close resembled.
No, not at all. Well,
The
and
movie we got.
look, I love Eddie Murphy, but
Yeah, me too.
he's got such a distinct laugh that, I mean, for the Joker, I don't think it would have worked. You know?
No. One thing that I thought was really cool is for the Joker, Tim Curry and David Bowie were both.
Yeah, dude.
Both of those that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And of course, everyone I think knows about Robin Williams. They offered it to Nicholson. I think like everybody, man, everybody assumed, because the most recent thing at the top of their heads really about Batman was the Adam West sort of, prancing around kind of silly Batman. And so I think he had some reservations about it at first. And so it's sort of at this point legend that essentially they offered it to Robin Williams, who was like, absolutely. And I think they used that absolutely to kind of push Nicholson into saying yes. And then they had to turn Robin Williams down,
Wow.
But dude, did you read about all the stuff that Nicholson demanded?
Yeah. Every single day that there was a Lakers game, he had to take off.
Yeah, dude.
He got $6 million up front, but then the genius thing is
Oh my gosh, dude, for sure.
he got like the back end royalties, which means I think all in all he ended up making over $50 million just
dude.
off of his
Yeah,
royalties.
they say between 50 and 90 million.
Yeah.
So his
incredible.
usual fee was it was 10 million is what his usual fee, which, man, holy smokes,
Which speaking of that, this is insane. This goes along with that, but do you know that so 89, like I said, it was known as Bat Summer, which I specifically remember that. I was telling you earlier, I remember specifically walking up to the counter. I think I saw it 3 or 4 times in the theaters. And, I would lay my money down, and like it was so choreographed, and I wanted the lady to see my Batman watch so bad. Just because I thought, like in my 8-year-old brain, I was like, man, she is really going to think.
she's going to want to marry me, dude.
I've got it
I'm going
together.
to have free popcorn for life. I'm going to have all the candy I want. Now, that's what my 8-year-old brain was thinking, like,
Yeah.
man, she's going to be able to hook me up, bro.
But so in that summer, this is mind-blowing. They made over $750 million before it even reached the theaters, just in merchandise.
Jeez, man. Well,
That's
dude,
insane.
do you remember? Like,
Oh, it was everywhere.
It was all over the place.
Yeah.
I just remember just like being obsessed with all the stuff,
Yeah.
like I wanted it all, man. Okay. So also he demanded top billing. So if
Yeah.
you look at the DVD, or you look at the poster, or you look at the VHS, Nicholson's name comes first, man. So he demanded top billing. He also demanded that all of his scenes were shot in a 3-week block. He would show up. Everybody was there early as hell in the morning, to do makeup and stuff. So Keaton would get there early to get that suit on. And Nicholson, right out of the gate, said, well, I don't show up before, I think it was like 9, it might have been 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Because he said, I don't show up before like 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. because I'm just no good to you.
Yeah.
And then he shows up, he talks a little bit about sports, and then falls asleep in the makeup chair for like 45 minutes every day.
No. So that's the other thing. He would show up at 9 or 10, and then the makeup itself would take 2 more hours.
Jeez, man.
So they couldn't get started until like half the day was done.
Man.
But I mean, he did make a great Joker, though. I remember just thinking like, wow, this dude is terrifying.
Well, you go back and you watch it, and he's, I think sometimes, I don't know, with some of the new Jokers, imagine Jared Leto's Joker without any makeup on. I don't know, like Jack Nicholson's Joker was just like kind of a scary, powerful dude before he even fell in the acid,
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember the scariest part was when it showed his face was like disfigured without the makeup on. It was just so bizarre.
It was
like
weird. And also that scene where it's kind of like you don't see his face yet, but he's fallen in the vat of acid, and he's like talking to that plastic surgeon, and the guy's like, "Please, I did everything I can." He's like, "Get me that mirror," and his like hand, like there's like like his fingers are like nubs basically.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I forgot about that part. And,
yeah.
My son was kind of like, "Oh boy."
Did you see the trivia about that scene about the props? Well, the props basically were the props that they used in the dentist scene of Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh man,
Which is pretty cool. Yeah. Which is interesting too, because I guess Nicholson had actually played in like the original Little Shop of Horrors from the 60s.
Oh wow.
So it's sort of
like a full circle. I mean, this was the movie that I guess discovered Kim Basinger. Bassett.
I think it's Basinger.
Okay.
Is that right? She's from Georgia, by the way.
Yeah, didn't she buy a town? What town was it?
Yeah, she did. It's somewhere out in Athens.
Did you write down notes about Vicky Vale? The casting?
No.
Oh, man. Dude, listen to who almost... Listen...
Oh, yeah, Annette Bening.
No, dude. Sean Young from Blade Runner, Dune.
Oh.
Yeah. If you're a little bit younger than us, then you would have known her from Ace Ventura. But she got injured in a horse riding accident and so had to turn it down. And then Burton, but listen to this, man. This was cool too. A nice little tie-in into the next movie. Burton wanted Michelle Pfeiffer. But I didn't know this. Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Keaton had dated before. And at the time...
Whoa.
Yeah, dude. At the time, Keaton was trying to get back together with his like ex-wife or something. And so he put the kibosh on it, dude. He was like, nope.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's
really
great.
cool. How about honorable mention here? Harvey Dent.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
Billy D.
Yeah, pretty they really went in a different direction there.
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the fact that in the same line of series, first it's a black man, Billy D. Williams, Colt 45, and then down the line it's Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah. I read a little bit more about that, and Burton had but his concept was pretty like unique. It would have been interesting.
Cloud City.
He was like Cloud City. He was
Boy, we have got a case of the giggles today.
Oh my gosh, man. We really
Jeez.
do. Okay, let's back it down. We talked about casting. We would be remiss if we didn't go into the controversy that surrounded Michael Keaton being cast as Batman.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Dude, did you know that people there were like over 50,000 letters, man? People like took the time. This is not email. This is an online petition. This is 50,000 people taking the time to write down on a piece of paper, fold it up, put it in an envelope, mail that sucker to Warner Brothers in protest of Michael Keaton being cast. If you really think about it, the most recent thing that people know of Keaton at this point is, of course, Beetlejuice, which everyone loved him in that. but he's like a funny dude. Mr. Mom.
Yeah, I mainly remember the Mr. Mom thing. Like everybody would be like, "Oh, Mr. Mom's gonna be Batman."
You know, yeah, they didn't want Mr. Mom to be the new Batman. Everyone thought, okay, well, they just immediately thought, we've got Huey Herman's director, we've got Mr. Mom being Batman. This is going to be the cheesiest thing in the world. Hold on, I got kids coming in. Whoa, you got what is that?
It's a what?
Hey, babe. Hey, guys, I'm recording right now, so can I talk to you guys in just a little bit? Okay, love you. I love it. Okay. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So they got Mr. Mom. Everyone thought it was going to be super cheesy, super corny, just ridiculous, you know? Because of all that, though, you know, it forced Warner Brothers to put out in my opinion, very poorly edited kind of teaser trailer, especially when you have these, like, that they had these moments that I would have used if I was the one doing the teaser trailer.
So weird. It's such a weird little...
It's weird. The audio is off. Like, you can tell it's like pre-mastered audio, man. It's like super raw. It's like, this is the sound straight from the set.
Yeah.
You know, just completely raw.
But what's weird about that is apparently that was the thing that just sold it. And everybody's like, oh, man.
Yeah.
This is going to be great.
Because, I mean, there was, prior to that, during this period, so they started filming in the back lot at Warner Brothers there in California, I think, that's in Burbank. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And then people kept on, like, trying to sneak in, do all this kind of stuff, trying to take pictures. And so they moved it to Pinewood Studios in England.
Right.
And even then, I read this thing about how the unit publicist on staff there was offered like $10,000 to give the first photos of Jack Nicholson as the Joker.
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson. and then 2 reels of film were stolen and the police had to be involved and all this kind of stuff. So 2 reels is about like 20 minutes worth of film were just like taken. And Burton even says during this time of filming and because of all the like stress and problems and all this kind of stuff, he says, quote, "It was torture, the worst period of my life."
Yeah.
Warner Brothers released this teaser, and like you said, man, people loved it. Like, they went berserk. And again, this is a time period that I just, man alive, it was so much fun to kind of be a part of, and I know you'll agree. But people would go to the movies, buy a ticket to a movie they didn't necessarily want to see because they knew that the teaser trailer was being played for Batman. They would watch the teaser, and then they'd get up and walk out, man. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays it's like you get an alert on your phone from IMDb that, you know, the new trailer for The Batman with Robert
Pattinson.
Paddington. Which, you know, speaking of just controversy and stuff, it's like,
I mean, it looks cool,
dude,
though,
it looks
man.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
And you know what I think every single Batman movie has its own shared controversy about who is playing Batman. You know?
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I feel like, especially for us comic fans, you know, these are properties we've read the comics for 30 years, and you know, we have such a closeness, we feel like, to these characters. So it's like even like Christian Bale, you know, those sort of reimagined and set the new standard, I think, for the Batman movies later on. But it's like, I kind of feel like for every single one, it was sort of like, I don't know if this guy can handle it. I mean, I love Ben Affleck, the Batfleck stuff, but I feel like everybody's always going to have problems with something.
Yeah.
I will say, you know, and I know this isn't about the new Batman trailer, but I will say the one thing that's a little discouraging, I think, with the Pattinson thing is I read some interview that he was giving, and he was basically, he's kind of validating some sort of excuse why he refused to, like, work out and, like, bulk up, and it's like, come on, man. Like,
yeah, but dude, come on. Do we want him looking like
cool.
Do we want him looking like freaking Superman?
But I mean,
that
dude,
dude's
he's
arms
like,
are like so he can't even like extend his arms.
yeah,
Henry
but
Cavill.
I mean, it's still. I mean, I don't want a Batman that's like my size.
Yeah, but this
you
is
know?
year 2, man. I agree with you, but I mean, this is like year 2 of being.
You're
I know.
right. I know.
I mean, it's tough, man. But it's hard because, you know, as a artist yourself and as a comic book fan, you know, how many freaking Batman comics have we read and seen and different like drawings of them and, just different versions. You kind of have an idea in your head. And so I think you just have this picture in your mind, but dude, even though he didn't bulk up, man, there's that scene in the new teaser trailer or whatever you want to call it, where he just is punching the heck out of that dude, throws him to the ground, man, dude, it does look
pretty
awesome.
brutal.
And I think to me, I never really had a problem with necessarily who was playing Bruce Wayne and Batman. It was more of just can we have some continuity here? I mean, you've got Keaton for 2 movies, Val Kilmer for 1, and then George Clooney for Batman and Robin.
Yikes.
And it's boy, and they just got cheesier and cheesier. So we watched Batman Forever the other night too, and I just thought this was hilarious as an observation from an 8-year-old. And that's also cool, man. Think about it. I'm actually watching these movies with him his first time at basically the same age that I was whenever I first watched Tim Burton's Batman,
Which, I mean, how many did you get to? Did you make it to Returns?
We didn't watch Returns.
It's pretty dark, man.
Yeah, I think he's maybe next year. But we skipped that one and then went straight to Batman Forever. And the first thing he says is why does Batman's costume have nipples? And you remember, man, that was everybody's problem.
So well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, man, I wonder if Tyler's going to interrupt me here. Probability. If I was a betting man, well, now I've lost my train of thought. So go ahead, friend.
No, I was going to say, I think it was weird because, Joel Schumacher, Burton left, and then Schumacher came in on those, and I'm sure we'll do these on another podcast. But, it was weird because, it was they ramped up the campiness, to 10 to sort of, even do more of, the 66 Batman thing, which to me it was sort of okay, well, maybe they're doing that to sort of, get more kid audience so we can sell more toys. But then there's, other choices in those movies. It's, nipples, and, they're constantly showing,
Well, dude, the first line that you hear Batman say in Batman Forever is Alfred, he's about to leave the Batcave. Alfred says, "Should I make you a sandwich, sir?" And by the way, thank you. Thank you very much.
Very good.
That's, I know I'm going to get phone calls about that one and probably get a couple of job offers, but not right now. Thank you, though. I appreciate you considering me. And Val Kilmer says, "I'll get drive-through." And it is the corniest.
Yeah.
It made Woodrow laugh. He thought, man, I never thought I'd ever hear Batman say that. And so I don't know, man.
It was just so over the top.
But it's funny that it was Joel Schumacher because he's the one that directed 8mm, which is the exact opposite of campy or even.
Well, that's also Boo Boo, our old bass player. Well, his favorite movie of all time is 8mm Part 2.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Boo Boo, go get some movie. Hey, man, you got tons of DVDs in your house. We've been watching these that we have in the van a million times. Just go grab a stack of your favorite ones. Oh, okay. Runs in. Cut to, we're kind of thumbing through as we're on the road 30 minutes later. 8mm 2, Deep Blue.
Which I will say we did end up all kind of liking that movie.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. This movie is unbelievable. It's a staple of my childhood memories, man. I'm not saying that I didn't really like Batman prior to this movie, but I didn't really care. Really, because all I ever thought of was cheesy, pew, pow, boom, pow. And this was whoa, man, it's dark, The visuals in the movie are just so cool too. And not to mention the Danny Elfman score, man. It's just perfection.
Yeah. Well, it was weird too because it kind of as Batman fans of the comics, it's weird because I guess this would have been early 80s for us. We had, it's sort of the Neil Adams Batman, which a lot of this is sort of based off of. So you have the leaner Batman, you have the longer ears. A lot of this movie is kind of based off of his design. So it was weird because you have the comic version and then, you think of Batman on film or anything like that. And it's the only thing we had was the 66 Batman, which it felt just kind of two different things. But then at the same time, it was sort of oh, well, we just couldn't imagine another Batman on screen. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a weird sort of situation. One thing that I did want to say, we were talking about a lot of the stuff being based off of the Neil Adams version. There was a guy named Bob Ringwood. He's the guy he's like the costume designer. And, you know, he even says that a lot of it was based off the Neil Adams stuff. But it says he used over 200 issues of comics to sort of pull certain little elements from. He had 28 foam latex designs for the suits. He had 25 different variations on the cape and 6 different cowls.
Jeez,
and talking about the costume, Keaton couldn't ever turn his neck, which was kind of a thing that it sort of ran through all of them, but he couldn't turn his neck with the cowl without pretty much screwing up the costume. So and it's funny because, you know, him doing that weird, you know, full body turn, that kind of became its own sort of little like hero turn, I think they would call it.
I mean, it's just such a good movie, man. You know, I know that like Burton apparently just, you know, wasn't really like a humongous comic guy really, but I think he'd been turned on to The Killing Joke, and really kind of used that as inspiration, and really kind of loved the dynamic between Batman and Joker in that.
Well, I had read that before too, but then I read that the guy Michael Keaton, he's the guy who pretty much owned the rights for it, and so when it was, you know, pretty much set in stone that Burton was going to be taken over, he gave him, you know, I don't know if it was like trades or what, but he basically said, hey, all you're allowed to pull from is the original run Detective Comics with Bob Kane, 1939. You're only allowed to use this until you get to the point where Robin comes in, which is really interesting because he wasn't really like a fan per se. So I think that's a lot of the reason that Burton is just, if you really think of it, you know, 30,000 foot view, looking at it in retrospect, the guy was, he was basically like a student filmmaker, but he just had such a crazy like vision and had such a unique scope of how he wanted things to look. And
it's almost like abstract,
brilliant.
really, you know?
Oh, it's so abstract.
I mean, whenever you watch any of his films, you can see his signature on it just immediately, you know? It's just so funny. I started reading a little bit, and you know, just in case anybody was wondering about my opinion on either film or music critics, I basically think of them as, well, I don't want to go extreme here and say like lowest level of existence, but I don't really have a whole lot of room for their opinions, really. You know, they don't really, I don't know. I've never really bought anything because the critics said it was good. And I never really watched anything because, you know, the critics said it was good.
Which, I know people that, like, oh man, this critic said this movie is this. And it's like, okay, well, they won't even.
It's funny, now that I say that, I think about all the, you know, you think about all the taglines, like either on the back of a tape or, you know, in a commercial. It's like the summer hit of the year, you know, that kind of stuff was always the stuff that I just ignored completely.
Yeah, me too.
You know?
Yeah.
But so as I was kind of like reading through the critical response of the film, I just thought, man, I don't know, for whatever reason, it just always makes me mad. So, I don't even want to talk about it on here. All I know is it did well. Reception, fans loved it. I loved it. So despite the initial negative response from comic fans about Keaton being cast, after the release, his performance was just greatly praised. In fact, even to this day, it's one of, you know, the performances he's kind of best known by.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, he's an incredible actor, man. Even the stuff that he does most recently, you know, where he played, is it Vulture?
Yeah.
In Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a complex character that I think they brought complexity to it. I don't really know. You'll probably know more about this. I don't really know how true that stuck to the origins of Vulture and stuff, but just the way that they portrayed it in those new Spider-Man movies, I just thought he did a really, really good job, man. And did you ever see that movie Birdman? Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I was actually just going to say that. I think that was sort of like his sort of renaissance, like when he kind of, you know.
I thought that was phenomenal, dude.
I thought it was good.
It was kind of intense.
Yeah, well, it was kind of weird, and I don't know. The ending sort of left me, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I will say his
acting was
it's incredible. Yeah.
And a lot of those like single shots, man, you know, there's no room for mistakes, man. And like you read about certain parts where he was like talking to Emma Stone and they like messed up, but they both just kept on going kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think I could be way off, but I feel like I remember.
You probably are.
Definitely. I feel like that movie has like some of the longest stretches of continuity without stopping. I mean, it's kind of based around like a sort of stage performance anyway. So, but I mean, apparently they would just go for just huge, long amounts of time.
Yeah, man, it's amazing. I mean, we haven't even. There's just so much to talk about. With this movie, there's just so much awesome about it. You've got Prince on the soundtrack. It's one of the first movies that actually had two separate soundtracks. One with the Prince and all that stuff, and then
I think it
one
was the
with,
first.
Yeah, maybe so.
The first where you had like the score, and then you had, we're both big Prince fans, and but I did find out that.
Party Man. Dude, it was so good back then.
It was good. Yeah, so this was Prince's 11th studio album. It was released June 20th, 1989, which is a day before my birthday, June 21st. So everybody get some gifts ready for next June. It stayed in the Billboard Top 100 spot, #1 spot, for 6 weeks and went multi-platinum. The album was also recorded in 6 weeks. This is amazing. Originally, it was going to have Prince's song 1999 and Baby I'm a Star, and he was going to kind of intersperse some of his previously recorded tunes on there. But then midway through he was like, no, I'm Prince, so I'm going to do this whole thing all original new music. But he did. There was a Rolling Stone article where he said that the album was originally supposed to be a collaboration between him and Michael Jackson, and it was going to be sort of looked at as like what he called a duet, where he was going to represent the Joker, and then Michael Jackson was going to be basically Batman.
Don't kill me, man! Don't kill me! Don't kill me, man!
I'm not going to kill you. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
But Michael Jackson was out on the road for the Bad tour. I think that's just amazing. I mean,
dude, that is amazing.
Just
man.
imagine.
And then also everything that you just said just immediately took me back to that time period. So Michael Jackson's like on the Bad tour, just like, oh god, what a time!
I mean, he's huge.
Such a time to be alive. That was so much fun back then, man.
One thing that I thought was really cool at the end of Bat Dance, it ends with like this, like somebody saying stop. And basically that was sampled from Michael Keaton telling the Batmobile to turn off, to stop, which I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, there was also samples like I'm Vicky Vale. I remember that was like in one of the songs. Dude, and what about the toys, man? Like in fact, I'll post them in the artifacts, man. I've still got, it's so awesome. I've got one that's like, it's Michael Keaton basically as Bruce Wayne. And then you can like snap on the armor. Armor. Yep. And then, do you remember the Joker?
I don't know that I ever found the Joker.
Oh, dude, his face was like hypercolor. Because you remember in the movie how he would be like flesh color, but then he'd like wipe it off and it'd be like the Joker, quote unquote, makeup was underneath. So he was applying flesh colored makeup to kind of seem normal. Well, with the toy, depending on whether or not you applied like heat to his face, it would change to that flesh color.
Wow.
And then,
I never had that.
So I still
That's
have
amazing.
that. I still have that. If my kids hadn't, broken it. So
I do remember there were like a million
there
Bob
he
the
goes
Goon.
again, just interrupting me.
I didn't know you were going to continue on.
Go ahead, Baba Ganoush.
Okay, and no, Bob the Goon.
Oh yeah,
toy. Every store you went into, you could find those things everywhere.
Yeah, of course, man. Nobody wanted Bob. Did you know? Here's a fun fact about Bob the Goon. Poor guy. The only reason he got the job was he was like in real life. That actor was like one of Nicholson's like really good friends, and so Nicholson was like, "Nah, man, he's gonna be my right hand man in the movie." And they're like, "Okay."
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then he had a toy with, millions sold.
Yeah, I didn't buy it.
I did, and what's funny is I remember going into the store, and it was a Big G store in Cleveland, Georgia, and I specifically remember like my mom driving me to the store to get like, oh, I'm going and I'm gonna get a Batman figure, and it's gonna be awesome, and it was like a big thing. And I remember getting to the store, and the only toy left was Bob the Goon, and I'm just standing there like, God, am I my poor mom, I just like probably was a lunatic for the whole first half of the day for her just to drive me here to get this stupid toy. But I don't even really want this toy. But man, I will say, like, I still have the Batman or the Batmobile from that movie, and the just the Batman figure alone was amazing. Like the little belt with like the string.
The string, yep.
Gosh, that was amazing.
I like how utilitarian Christian Bale's Batmobile is. But man, this still remains as
the
my
best.
absolute favorite Batmobile.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was just watching that. No, it wasn't High Score. I was just watching something, and it was showing like some of the old Batman game, like the gameplay, and it was showing like the scene where Batman like jumps out of his car, but like you first see like the armor mode.
Oh yeah,
because you guys have been playing like the game recently.
We've been playing the Batman
Batman
Returns game, but
is it on that one?
Hey, bro, I haven't gotten that far in the game because it's so flipping hard, man.
It's impossible.
God.
So Anton Furst is a guy who's the production designer. He did like Full Metal Jacket and a bunch of other stuff under his belt. But apparently, when he was building the sort of the layout of Gotham City, the way Tim Burton described how he wanted it to look was, he said, it's New York if everything had gone all wrong, and there had been no planning commission for like 300 years.
Yeah, man, I like that.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Do the kid a favor, lady. Don't scream.
I love the way the guy says, "What are you?" And he's like, and he like pulls him close.
Pulls him close. Yeah.
I'm Batman. I mean, dude, come on.
Classic.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was one of the parts in the trailer that was like, oh man, this movie's not messing around. This is legit.
Oh man, and you know it's funny when we were rewatching it. That whole intro sequence, man, where you're just like the camera's kind of just like going around what seems to be like, you don't know what it is. Is it big buildings? Is it like the edge of a building? What's going on? And then it pans out and it's the bat symbol. You know, it's like I don't even know how long, but it's like a good 5 minutes. You know, and when we were watching it, we're just like, man, can we just fast forward it or what? I'm like, no, I mean, you got to see what it is. And it was like the bat symbol. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Man, I was just watching a movie with my oldest, Amelia. She's 5, and it was the same thing. It was like, I was like, oh, Amelia, you're gonna love this movie. What was it?
Was it Dennis the Menace?
Maybe it was Dennis the Menace.
We watched that this weekend too,
which is so good. It is such a good movie. It's brilliant. Man, Amelia thought it was like, I mean, we were like laughing our heads off. It was like the Walter Matthau especially is like,
yeah, he's the best.
When they're having that serious moment in the bed, and she's like, you know, I would have made a great mother. Oh, yeah. And he said, and I would have made a swell firefighter. Just amazing. Also, I will say, I feel like movies have gotten, I feel like this about everything, music, movies, but like, I feel like everything that comes out is just not as good. So you look back at movies, I remember thinking Dennis the Menace was like, it's okay as a kid, but then going back to it now, it's like, this is one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah. What's funny about that movie, I know we're really just kind of coming off the rails here. The funny thing about that movie is it is the only time I've ever been to a drive-in movie.
Oh, wow.
When we moved back to the States from living overseas, we went to this drive-in movie, and it was a double feature. And so Dennis the Menace was first, Jurassic Park was second, dude.
Wow.
And what a lineup. It was awesome. So, yeah, man, I don't really know what else we should cover about this movie other than it really was the beginning of my love for Batman. Anybody that knows me, Batman is actually my favorite superhero. And here's why. Now, and I love a lot of superheroes, but Batman was always kind of like first place whenever I was a kid because, you know, all the other superheroes have like a superpower and stuff. And so it didn't as bad as I wanted that to kind of happen. Like, oh man, how cool would it be if I had like a superpower? Batman is just a guy. So he was the most sort of realistic of I could become Batman, you know? I mean, yes, I have to be like a billionaire, but at the same time, it's like he's just a guy. He's just a man. He doesn't have superpowers. He just has, as the Joker would say, Jack Nicholson would say, you know, really awesome toys, you know? I mean, so that's why he was always my number one superhero.
Yeah, he's a huge, it's funny. I'm a comic book artist now, and I will say in the last 3 years, I would say Batman's probably definitely the most I've drawn. I've done the most Batman commissions. I mean, I just had a commission list that I've finished. That I am finishing now, and I would say almost half of those are somehow Batman related. Just because, I mean, he's really fun to draw, but it's just, man, people love him, and he's so great. I mean, I'll have to post some pictures of my studio, but pretty much all the walls of my studio is just pretty much all either commissions or art trades that I've done with other friends that are artists, and it's amazing. I mean, it's funny too because I don't know that necessarily Batman is my favorite. I mean, yeah, maybe he is my favorite, but I love the fact that I can say, I mean, I'm looking now, and these are from this one's from a guy from New York, Canada, Brazil, Argentina, Savannah, Georgia, another Brazil, Australia, and like all these pieces, on my wall are from artists that just, run the gamut of super house style, regular comic style to like really indie kind of underground comics. I love the fact that like with every single one of those, I just say, hey, I want you to just do your version of Batman. Just do what you think's cool. And like, even though all of these are sort of, they all fall under the same mantle as like, oh, that's a Batman, piece of Batman art. Every single one of them look almost completely different. Mm-hmm. It's pretty fascinating, really.
One of the things that I love about Batman too is like just the steadiest moral compass, man.
Yeah.
Even in the campy Batman Forever movie, there's a scene where Dick Grayson really just wants to kill Two-Face, because in this movie, Two-Face was the one that caused his parents to die. Mm-hmm. And so he's telling Bruce Wayne, because he's at this point found out that Bruce Wayne's Batman. He's like, I don't care. I'm going to kill him, And Bruce Wayne says, you could kill him, but it's not going to fill that emptiness that you feel, I just loved the, as sad as it is, his own personal tragedy that formed and sort of forged him into this super moral superhero that isn't going to kill the bad guy if at all costs. As we're talking about that and this movie, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it.
He's got machine guns on the Batmobile.
Yeah, he's got machine guns on the Batmobile. He, he tries his best.
Well, even the Batwing doesn't. It has like missiles and machine guns and stuff too.
Boy, I'm glad I brought that up.
It is interesting too, like seeing this Batman. Well, like you're saying with a moral compass. Like I think it's interesting because you have Frank Miller came out with The Dark Knight Returns in '86, and then you have, I think you mentioned earlier, The Killing Joke, Alan Moore, Brian Boland, and like those are sort of like thrust the other way where they're super dark and like he's definitely fine with killing, but like that's still, I think that's interesting how there's like the older style, even though pop culture didn't really adapt the '86 super violent Dark Knight Returns, where he's like an old man and that kind of thing. But I think it's interesting that like as we progress into like the modern world or whatever, further and further, it's like they still keep that sort of core foundation to the character with like, oh well, no, that's Batman doesn't kill, but then it's like, boy, they push it real close to the line though.
Yeah.
Did you see where, and I've never heard this, but apparently Michael Keaton, he was really pushing for this like basically when he would go from Bruce Wayne to Batman, he would almost enter like a meditative like trance type state. Did you read that?
No.
I've never heard this, but like, yeah, apparently he kept trying to push this, and there's like several scenes where, that were later like cut out because they felt like, wow, this is kind of confusing. But he said, in several interviews, he's like, yeah, I think even though they were cut out, they really helped me sort of, basically he wanted to like have a real sort of line in the sand between like the roles, so I'm Bruce Wayne here, and then I sort of enter this whole like sort of other state to become the Batman. I think it's pretty interesting, but it's that would have been an interesting take for sure. Yeah, and apparently too, granted, he did a little bit like in like the Dark Knight Returns. He, there's this scene that's similar to like Batman v Superman, where he has like the Batman's wearing like the sort of mech suit or whatever. But, this was like the first time on screen where we saw Batman with like a kind of like armor-based sort of thing. So, and that was all Tim Burton, I read. His whole deal was like he wanted him to be really menacing, and like the whole spandex thing just didn't do it for him, which is interesting too. That probably stems from him not really even being a comic book guy or even like a Batman kind of guy. So,
but I mean, aside from like Spider-Man, I mean, think about how much that influenced future superhero movies from then on out, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and also because of that, you think hindsight's 20/20, and you see how like you were saying before, how Paul Rubin loved Danny Elfman, and all those things were connected. You look at even just that decision, and I mean, Michael Keaton. I mean, I'm sure he was. I've read where he picked up like Muay Thai, kickboxing, and he was going to the gym and stuff, but he wasn't necessarily like a ripped dude. So by Tim Burton having that decision to have like an armored type kind of like bigger sort of suit, I think if he would have went the more sort of typical stereotypical route of like, oh well no, we have to have a guy that's like huge and has a ton of muscles, and I think because of that decision, that's probably part of the reason that we even have a Michael Keaton.
Well, and I love that. I mean, one of the design decisions too, man, was the all black.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, every movie from then on, has maintained that pretty much. So, look, I think we could talk about this movie for many more episodes. There's just so much about it that we treasure, and we just think it's one of the greatest Batman movies ever made. I think this is probably a good place to kind of stop. And if anybody listening has not seen it, the good news is I didn't spoil the ending. You got anything else you want to add about Tim Burton's Batman?
No, man. I mean, I just think that in retrospect, it was just such a bold move. I think just all of the decisions were just so bold and so unsafe and un-studio exec calculated. I mean, almost every decision. I mean, Jack Nicholson, obviously, he was sort of like the star at the time. But, other than that, I mean, really weird choice for director, really weird choice for the main lead, really bizarre composer, score choice. I mean, all these things are just they were really just bold, really pretty amazing and really risky. I think sometimes it kind of takes that, and I feel like in this movie it really paid off. Yeah, I love it. I love it, and it really, really holds a place in our hearts. Where can people find us?
They can find us on our Instagram. That would be rad.
And we may actually have a giveaway for a Bob the Goon toy coming up. So
if you could find that, man. In fact, it's probably worth a ton.
Is it? You think so?
No, not at all.
Man, I just remember seeing that sucker everywhere.
Oh, God. Oh, Bob the Goon.
Like, subscribe, give us 5 stars on iTunes if you can. We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And actually, I want to start a new thing where for every 5 stars that we get on iTunes, I kind of want to read those.
Oh, yeah. So read the responses on air.
And give a shout out.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Thank you again for listening. If you made it this far, then you're a true believer and lover of our podcast. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Until then, be rad.
That's the way it goes.